true gym horror story. I used to go to a small 24-hour gym in Portland, Oregon. It wasn't a big commercial gym like Planet Fitness or LA Fitness. It was a local place called Iron Forge Fitness. Most people went there during the day, but late at night, it was almost always empty. I worked evening shifts at a restaurant, so the only time I could work out was around midnight. At first, I liked it that way. No waiting for machines, no loud music, just me, the humming of the fluorescent lights, and the sound of weights clanking. The gym had 3 main areas. The front section had treadmills and ellipticals facing a wall of glass windows that looked out into the dark parking lot. The middle area had benches and dumbbells, and the back hallway led to the locker rooms and showers. The first weird thing happened about 2 weeks after I joined. It was around 12:40 a.m., and I was on one of the treadmills doing a slow jog. The parking lot outside was completely empty except for my car. While I was running, I noticed a man walk past the front window. That immediately confused me. The parking lot was small, and there was nowhere nearby to walk from. The closest building was a closed grocery store across the street. I slowed the treadmill down and looked toward the entrance door, but no one came in. The door had a loud bell that rang whenever someone entered. I never heard it. I shrugged it off and figured maybe someone had just walked past the building. But about 10 minutes later, something happened again. This time I heard the sound of metal clanging from the weight room behind me, like someone had dropped a barbell. I turned around. Nobody was there. At that point, I started feeling uneasy, but I told myself maybe a weight had rolled off a rack or something. I finished my workout and left around 1:15 a.m. As I was walking to my car, I noticed something strange. There were wet footprints on the pavement, leading from the side of the building toward the parking lot. Bare footprints. But it hadn't rained that night, and they stopped halfway across the lot, like whoever made them had just disappeared. I tried not to think about it, but the next night something even stranger happened. Again, I showed up around midnight. Again, the gym was empty. I started with some bench presses in the middle section of the gym. While I was resting between sets, I noticed movement in the mirror on the wall. Someone walked down the hallway toward the locker rooms. At least, that's what it looked like. I quickly sat up and looked directly at the hallway. Nothing. No footsteps. No locker doors. No running water. Just silence. Now I was genuinely creeped out. So I grabbed my phone and walked toward the locker room entrance. The lights inside were off except for one flickering bulb near the showers. I called out, "Hello?" No response. I took a few steps inside and checked the rows of lockers. They were all closed. But when I got to the last row, I noticed one locker slightly open. Inside was a black gym bag. It looked old and dusty, like it had been sitting there for years. As I stood there staring at it, my phone suddenly buzzed. It was a notification from the gym security system app. Motion detected in workout area. That didn't make sense. I was standing in the locker room, which meant someone or something was now in the main gym area. I slowly walked back into the hallway. When I reached the corner and looked out toward the treadmills, my heart dropped. Someone was standing near the window, a tall man, completely still, just staring outside into the parking lot. I couldn't see his face clearly because the lights behind him were dim. At first, I thought maybe another member had come in while I was in the locker room, but then I realized something. The front door was still locked, and the entry bell never rang. I took a step closer and said, "Hey man." The guy didn't move, didn't turn around, nothing. That's when the lights in the gym suddenly flickered, just once. And in that split second, when the lights dimmed, the man was gone. Not walking away, not running, just gone. The entire workout area was empty. I immediately grabbed my bag and left the building. I didn't even finish my workout. The next day, I went back during the afternoon and talked to the gym owner. I explained everything that happened. He listened quietly, then asked me something strange. "What time were you there?" I told him, around midnight to 1 a.m. His expression changed. Then he told me a story I wish I never heard. About 3 years earlier, a man had been found dead in the gym's locker room. He was a regular member who came late at night. Apparently, He collapsed while working out, and no one found him until the next morning. The creepy part? The owner said the man was usually seen running on the treadmill closest to the window, the exact spot where I saw that figure standing. After hearing that, I canceled my membership. I never went back to that gym again. But sometimes when I drive past that building late at night, I swear I can see someone inside, running on the treadmill, even though the gym closed 2 years ago. Ghosts. True gym horror story, story 2. This happened a few years ago when I was living in Columbus, Ohio. At the time, I was working overnight shifts at a warehouse, so my sleep schedule was completely messed up. The only time I could go to the gym was late at night, usually around 11:30 p.m. or midnight. The gym I went to was a small 24-hour place, not a big commercial gym like Gold Gym or Anytime Fitness. It was one of those key card entry gyms where members could come in any time. Most nights, I was completely alone, and honestly, I liked it that way. No crowds, no waiting for equipment, and I could take my time. The building itself was kind of old. It used to be some kind of small grocery store before it became a gym. Because of that, the layout was a little weird. The front area had treadmills and bikes facing the windows. The middle section had benches and free weights. And in the back, there was a long hallway that led to locker rooms and a storage room that the staff kept locked. The first strange thing happened one night around 12:20 a.m. I was doing deadlifts when I heard the front door beep, which meant someone had scanned their key card to enter. That was normal, so I didn't think much of it. But after a minute passed, I realized something strange. I never heard footsteps. Usually when someone came in, you could hear their shoes on a rubber floor or see them walk past the mirrors. But there was nothing. I looked toward the entrance. Nobody. The door was closed and the lobby was empty. I walked over there thinking maybe someone had opened the door and left. But when I checked the parking lot outside, my car was the only car there. That made my stomach sink a little. I told myself the system probably glitched or something. So I went back to my workout. About 15 minutes later, I moved over to the treadmill area. While I was stretching, I noticed something in the reflection of the window. Someone standing behind me. I turned around immediately. No one. The entire gym was empty. Now I was starting to feel seriously uncomfortable. I decided I would just finish my workout quickly and leave. But as I got on the treadmill, I heard a loud bang from the back hallway, like a door being slammed. I jumped off the treadmill and stared down the hallway. The locker room door was slightly open, and the light inside was on. The weird part, I was pretty sure the lights were off earlier. For some reason, I felt this urge to check it out. Looking back, that was probably a stupid decision. I slowly walked down the hallway and pushed the locker room door open. Inside, everything looked normal at first. The sinks, the lockers, the benches, nothing out of place. But then I noticed something weird in the mirror above the sinks. Behind me, one of the shower curtains slowly moved, like someone had just stepped out. I spun around instantly. All the shower stalls were empty, but one of the curtains was still gently swaying. At that point, my heart was pounding. I walked out of the locker room and headed back toward the main gym area. And that's when I heard something that made my blood run cold. Footsteps, running footsteps, coming from behind me in the hallway. I turned around expecting to see someone, but the hallway was completely empty. The footsteps suddenly stopped. Right behind me. I didn't even look back again. I grabbed my bag, ran straight to the exit, and got in my car. The next day, I came back during the afternoon to cancel my membership. While I was talking to the employee at the desk, I casually mentioned hearing weird noises in the locker room. The guy working there gave me a strange look. Then he asked, "Was it around midnight?" I said yes. He sighed and told me something I wish I didn't know. About 5 years earlier, before the building became a gym, a man had broken into the store when it was closed. The police later found him dead in the back hallway. Apparently, he had been hiding inside overnight and collapsed from a heart attack. The hallway where I heard those footsteps was the exact same hallway. After hearing that story, I never went back there again. But what still creeps me out the most is something I noticed while leaving that day. There was a security monitor behind the front desk showing the gym cameras. and on one of the screens, the treadmill I use at night before was slowly moving, even though no one was on it. Ghost. True gym horror story. Story 3. This happened to me in Denver, Colorado about 4 years ago when I used to work as a night security guard. Because of my schedule, I slept during the day and stayed awake most of the night. To stay healthy, I started going to a 24-hour gym after my shift, usually around 2 a.m. The gym was part of a small fitness chain. Nothing huge like 24-Hour Fitness or Planet Fitness, but it was still pretty modern. It had large glass windows in the front, a big free weight area in the middle, and locker rooms in the back. At night, the place was almost always empty. Sometimes 1 or 2 people would show up, but most nights I had the whole gym to myself. And at first, I loved that. The building was located near an industrial area. So after midnight, the entire street became extremely quiet. No traffic, no people walking outside, just dark warehouses and the occasional streetlight. One night in late October, I showed up around 2:15 a.m. like usual. The front desk was empty since the gym switched to key card entry after midnight. I scanned my card, the door unlocked, and I stepped inside. The lights were dimmer than usual, which the gym did to save electricity overnight. The only real sound inside was the soft hum of the air conditioning. I started with some stretches and then moved over to the bench press area. For about 20 minutes, everything felt normal. But then something strange happened. While I was lifting, I heard the front door open behind me. That wasn't unusual. Other members sometimes came in late. But after a minute, I realized something odd. I never heard footsteps. Usually when someone walked in, you could hear their shoes on the rubber gym floor or see them in the mirror walls. But the gym was still silent. I sat up on the bench and looked toward the entrance. The door was closed, and no one was there. I figured maybe someone opened the door and left immediately. So I shrugged it off and continued my workout. About 10 minutes later, I moved to the treadmill section near the windows. As I started jogging, I noticed a car slowly driving to the parking lot outside. That immediately caught my attention, because that parking lot was usually empty at that hour. The car stopped near the far corner under a dim streetlight, but the headlights stayed off. Whoever was inside just sat there. I kept glancing at the car while running, trying to see if someone would get out, but no one did. After about 5 minutes, I stopped the treadmill and walked closer to the window. The car was still there, but now I could see someone sitting in the driver's seat, just watching the gym. That made me uncomfortable, but I figured maybe it was another member waiting for someone. So I went back to the weights area. That's when I heard something that made my stomach drop. Footsteps, slow footsteps, coming from the locker room hallway. I froze, because I knew one thing for sure. No one had walked past me, and the only way to reach the locker rooms was by going through the main gym floor first. The footsteps continued slow and steady. Step, step, step. Then they stopped, right at the end of the hallway. I stared toward the corner, expecting someone to walk out, but nothing happened. The hallway stayed dark and empty. At that point, my heart was beating fast. I grabbed my phone and walked cautiously toward the hallway. As I got closer, I noticed a locker room light was on. I was almost certain it had been off earlier. I slowly peeked inside. The locker room looked normal at first. Rows of metal lockers, wooden benches, a few mirrors above the sinks. But then I noticed something strange. One of the lockers near the back was open. Inside, it was a gray hoodie hanging from a hook, and the floor beneath it looked wet, like someone had just stepped out of the shower. But the shower area lights were off, and everything was completely silent. Suddenly, behind me in the hallway, I heard breathing. Slow, heavy breathing, right behind my shoulder. I spun around instantly. No one. The hallway was completely empty. That was the moment I decided I was done. I quickly walked back to the main gym area, grabbed my bag, and headed for the exit. But as I approached the front door, something outside caught my eye. The car in the parking lot. It was gone. The parking lot was completely empty again. I unlocked the door and stepped outside, trying to calm down. But then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. There were wet footprints on the concrete leading from the gym entrance. Bare footprints. They went across the parking lot. toward the exact spot where the car had been parked earlier, and then they stopped like whoever made them had just vanished. The next day, I came back during the afternoon and talked to the gym manager. I explained everything that happened the night before. At first, he looked skeptical, but when I mentioned the locker room and the wet footprints, his expression changed. He went quiet for a moment, then told me something disturbing. About 6 years earlier, a man had died inside the gym late at night. He had collapsed in the locker room showers after a workout. Apparently, no one found him until the next morning when the staff opened the building. The creepiest part? According to the manager, the man was known for always coming to the gym around 2 a.m. after his night shift, the exact time I was there. After hearing that story, I canceled my membership the same day. I found a different gym across town. But every once in a while, when I drive past that building late at night, I still see a car sitting in the far corners of the parking lot, headlights off, just watching the gym, waiting. Ghost, is this conversation helpful so far?